Welcome to a special live edition of Marketplace Masters, brought to you by Merchant Spring, the leading marketplace analytics platform for agencies and investors. Marketplace Masters is all about going deeper into the challenges e-commerce sellers face to broaden understanding and provide you with practical actions to implement. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today I am joined by Max Snyder from Be Bold Digital.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show, Max. Max, for those of you who don't know, Max is the VP of Advertising for Be Bold Digital, and he's a veteran advertiser with experience actually across social, search, and e-commerce. His specialty is in translating reporting into actions, and that's what we're chatting about today. So thank you, Max, and thanks for making yourself available today to talk to us.
Oh, of course. I'm really happy to be here. I mean, you guys have one terrific product and two terrific content, so happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate that. All right. So today we're talking about metrics, and as I was posting this, this event again, sort of, on LinkedIn yesterday, I was thinking about actually a lot of people talk about metrics all the time, but a lot of times that's in the context of measuring results or even just taking screenshots and posting, telling how good you are. But you've taken a very different angle on it, and I'd love to explore that today. Before we do, I think it's just important to get down to some of the basics, right? We're talking about metrics, but you really need to look at metrics in the context of what you're achieving, your goals are. So just to set the scene and take us off, what are the typical goals that you work on with your clients? And what are some of the metrics that you tie back specifically to each of those goals?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think goal alignment is one of the most important parts of my job and really any digital advertiser's job, because we can all go out and achieve a terrific tacos or ACoS, then find out tomorrow profitability isn't exactly the number one goal. So we see goals ranging from profitability and efficiency, where we might be measuring CPC, click-through rate, ACoS, tacos. We see goals that are just straight sales growth. We don't care how efficient we are. We just want to do X amount of sales over the next couple of months. There we might just strictly talk more about the budgets, sales. Tacos usually comes into it just to figure out kind of what the reinvestment level is going to be. We have goals like market share. We want to look at share of voice. We want to look at impressions. I've had clients that come with goals that just say, we don't want to see our competitor on the first page. What do we have to do to knock them off the first page of these keywords? And that can get really competitive. But when that's the case, you have to figure out what kind of metrics you're looking at and how to accomplish those goals.
So let me just probe you a little bit more on some of the points you mentioned. You mentioned goals and clients, and it sounds like you are actually working with every single client. There's no cookie cutter approach to goals as such. I know there's a lot of agencies listening to our show, so take us through. And this wasn't part of the script, but I'd love to just understand. What do you do up front with the client before you really start working to really get clarity and alignment around those goals?
So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of an audit just to look at the account. We always want to be having really transparent conversations about where the account currently is, what we think can happen in the next several months. We might build out a couple of plans based on a couple different goals and come with some suggestions, but that's really the first step of that goal alignment conversation to say, hey, we think you could grow like this, or like this, depending on if your goals are this level of efficiency or this level of sales growth or this level of market share. So it really is always about not just having that conversation up front, but continuously having that conversation again. Every client has people rotating within the company and they all have their own different set of goals. So month to month, you might even be changing your goals and reforecasting and trying a new strategy. So I really believe goal alignment is one of the number one things that we do up front, and that is really important to creating a successful plan that everybody can be aligned on.
Yeah, don't assume just because you've aligned on it once, everyone's still on the same page in 12 months' time.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So we recently did this survey about notifications, and if we were to automate some of the notifications in our platform, what types people, particularly agencies and aggregators, what types of notification they're most interested in. One of the things that struck me about that survey was heavy focus on sales, right? Very interested in sales notifications as opposed to profit notifications. And I want to tie that back to goals. When you look across your client base, and I know you guys work with a whole range of clients, how often, what's that balance there between, sales goals you're setting with your clients, getting kind of revenue in the door versus actually driving a profitable business? And, of course, part of the answer is that everything is important, but, where is that emphasis within your client portfolio?
Yeah, so I think at Be Bold, we tend to have a lot of clients that are focused on the incremental growth, but staying within a certain efficiency parameter. They might say we want to see where we can take our sales growth as long as we're sticking within this level of tacos, which is basically a certain level of reinvestment, so that at the end of the year, maybe 10 or 15 or 20% of the total sales go back into advertising. So that's pretty typical. But again, we definitely have goals all over the place.
So it sounds like sales, but with a measured level of investment.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to the goals and some of the metrics, you went through profitability, sales, and market share, and the different metrics around that. How do you measure success? How do you know that if your metrics are pointing in the right direction? How can you claim achievement on hitting those goals through metrics?
Really understanding what metric is your result and what metric is kind of the path to that point. If we have a sales goal within a tacos parameter, we really want to make sure that we're paying attention to all of the metrics that go into that. Our click-through rate, our conversion rate, these are all the kind of efficiency metrics that make sure that our ads are running effectively and efficiently. And from there, we can kind of build towards the goal to eventually, hit those sales goals. I think that a lot of times we can get really sort of stuck in these result metrics, and we kind of forget to focus on some of the back end stuff. What does your click-through rate look like? I keep bringing that one up because I think click-through rate and conversion rate are, they're not only some of the best efficiency metrics, they're some of the most actionable metrics that we have, where we can look in and say, okay, if click-through rate is down but conversion rate isn't changing, we kind of know these are the things that we need to be working on, that can start to stoke that fire a little bit.
Thanks, Max. One of the questions I get asked all the time, particularly as people are looking in our platform, they're looking at their tacos performance. Tacos is probably the most one, or now a lot of them, it's the ROAS performance for a particular category. What's a good number? Let's say I'm in health and beauty, and my tacos is running at 17%. Is that good, bad? How do I know, right? How do I evaluate against some sort of external measure here to work out whether I'm on the right track or not?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think there's a couple of things that we can do, right? We can, one, if there is an Amazon rep attached to the account, you can usually get some sort of benchmark data for your industry. There's always a ton of blogs out there that have that kind of benchmark data. I think that those tend to focus more on ROAS and ACoS than they focus on tacos and TROAS. They're looking at just the advertising account instead of looking at how it compares to the total sales as well. So that's sort of one of the ways you can go about it. One of the things that we like to really think about and look at, especially when we're talking about tacos, right? It's really what level of profitability you have within your company that allows for whatever level of reinvestment. And it really measures how aggressive you can get. We see that kind of 5 to 8% being right around a stagnation level, depending on, where your total sales are. 8 to 12, maybe 8 to 15 being, not aggressive, but getting some incremental sales there, and anything in that 12 to 15 and up range is really kind of aiming for more aggressive growth. And the reason why we use tacos and that level of reinvestment is because your total sales matter, right? It's much easier to grow a 10K brand by 10% than it is to grow a 400K a month brand by 10%. You just have to achieve more at that level. So that's definitely one of the metrics we look at a lot is tacos and how aggressive you're going to be, and that's really the way we think about it. It's very individual to the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So you spend a lot of your day, probably in Merchant Spring, looking at metrics, in Seller Central, in the advertising console, digesting metrics, letting the brain do its work. Can you share with us, what are some of your top metrics, some of your favorite metrics that you just like to hone in on all the time to see how things are tracking and set strategy?
Yeah, I've kind of already started to talk click-through rate and conversion rate. But, when we're pulling a Merchant Spring report, one of the first things we're looking at is, impressions versus clicks versus orders, kind of going through that funnel, right? I can actually do a
I think we've just lost Max's connection, so we'll just wait for him to come back on. You're back, Max. I
hey
don't know if
there,
that was
Paul.
me or
So
you,
sorry
but
about that.
no, that's okay. We'll keep going. We were talking about metrics, and you were talking about some of your go-to metrics on a daily basis and how you link those to actions.
Yeah, so we really like click-through rate. We really like conversion as some of those kind of back-end metrics that tend to get avoided a little bit. Well, maybe not avoided, but ignored. We find them to be really actionable. The reason being because just mathematically, they're measuring different steps of the funnel, right? So our click-through rate is really measuring how many people are served impressions versus how many people click on your ad. So there are ways to adjust that just through targeting, absolutely. But if we're not changing our targeting too much and we start to see our click-through rate go down, it could be competitors, or it might just be that there's a problem with, what we're showing the consumer once they're served an impression. So I don't know if you can see my screen here.
I'll bring it in.
So super quick, this is a search engine result page. As soon as I typed this in, all of these ads here served an impression. There's views here on all of these organic as soon as I scroll down below the fold. So if we've got a problem between the impression and the click stage, we can kind of whittle it down pretty quickly where the problem is, right? This main image, title, we've got our cost reviews, any discounting, things like that are things that we want to look at. Did we recently change these, right? Are we doing any copy and updates? Did our competitors recently change? Is there some sort of new trend? We've seen, especially in the beauty space, there's this new trend of showing the product outside of the bottle. So with that, we're kind of thinking, okay, what do we have to do to our content? So it can give us really actionable insights to say, click-through rate is going down. Did we change our targeting? No. Are there new competitors showing up here? No. Okay. Is there a problem with our content? Did we just change our content? Yes. This is the thing we need to change. The next thing that we look on, and I'm going to click in here, just not on an ad. I don't want anybody losing that CPC price. We look at conversion. Somebody's here already. We've got the click. Conversion is clicks and orders. So if our conversion rate is low or if it's high, it's usually indicative of the same things as click-through rate. We still have our main image. We still have our title. We've got our reviews and our pricing, but there's a lot more to it, right? We've got secondary and tertiary products. We've got variations. I don't know if this product will have A+ content, but there's also, bullet points and things like that. And these things can be really easy to kind of muddy the waters. I'm not going to name any names, but I worked with an agency about 1.5 years ago that they were like, oh, our click-through rate's really low. We're going to update our A+ content. But with impressions and clicks being the only things that's going to improve your click-through rate, A+ content isn't showing up here. So it's just really important to know kind of what goes into all of these metrics so that we can impact them at a more granular level and then kind of zoom out to that 30,000 foot, view to see how that's affected the whole account.
Yeah, and one of the questions I always get asked is around the Amazon title, right? Because the title is certainly compared to other e-commerce channels, the title tends to be long, full of keywords and optimized, but sometimes hard to read, right? And I'd love to hear your thoughts. How does that play into click-through rates and both click-through rate, because the title is showing up on the thumbnail there on the search results, but also on the actual conversion of the page. Does it play a role? What's your take on it?
Oh, it absolutely is going to play a role in click-through rate and conversion rate. The reason why I always bring those two up together is because you really have to look at how both of them are reacting, right? If your conversion rate and click-through rate are both going down, it's probably one of the things they share. It's probably your main image, your titles. These are the kind of things we can work on. If your click-through rate is going up, but your conversion rate is going down, your titles and main image are fine. You might just need to work on your A+ content. So I think that putting keywords into your title, one, it is taking into account what the consumer is searching for, as long as you're looking at high volume keywords. So it just makes it easier for a consumer to see. It also makes you more relevant to Amazon, right? Amazon sees those keywords. They know someone's searching for it, that you're going to show up where your keywords are searched.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I love the fact how looking at the common elements. There are elements that drive both click-through rate and conversion. Actually, if one goes up and one goes down, it's probably not those common elements. It's something that's unique to either.
Exactly.
Just want to prod you, again on conversion. Actually, A+ content, or it used to be called, I think, enhanced brand content. It looks beautiful. It's great. Brands love it, right? My issue is a lot of times it's like way below the fold, right? You have to do some serious scrolling action, until you're in my case, my index finger gets a bit of a workout. Is it a big factor in terms of page conversion? Is it a big factor?
I'm going to give you a real wishy-washy answer. It depends, right? You definitely, when you're launching A+ content and you're changing your A+ content, you want to be looking at these metrics and how they compare to each other. Some categories people are just buying right off the bat, right? People aren't doing a ton of research for. They're just seeing the price, they see the reviews, good to go. And that's the way I shop. I'm sure that's the way most of the viewers and you shop as well. We're looking at reviews, we're looking at price. That's usually good enough. But if you got a higher price point item, if you're in an industry where people are really concerned about ingredients or any kind of ethical background to the company, they might be doing a little bit more research. They might be scrolling down and reading the reviews, reading the questions and comments, seeing your A+ content. So whether or not you're in that kind of industry is really going to depend on the client and who their target audience is. But it doesn't hurt to have. I don't think anybody sees A+ content and then goes, nope, not for me, right? So it's not a bad thing to have. How impactful it is dependent on the client.
Yeah, I think it goes all back to, how does a customer actually decide to make a purchase? What are they looking for? What are the subconscious questions they're asking in their head before they make a purchase? And what is the role of A+ content in helping them gain confidence around some of the answers that are floating around? So very
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah. So we've spoken about click-through rate, conversion. Of course, we didn't talk about kind of general SEO impressions and the like, but of course, this is sort of more on the sort of generic, funnel. What about the advertising funnel, right? ACOS, TACOS, impressions. What do you look at there? How do you assess performance, and how do you, how do you link those actions back to metrics?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think, especially when we're talking about ACOS and tacos, one of the most important things to remember is to not silo your ads. Your ads impact your whole account. We start running ads, and organic, maybe a month or two later, our organic sales are going to start picking up as well, as long as we're running effective ads. So it's really important to understand the Amazon flywheel, which is kind of, Amazon's version of their marketing funnel. Somebody purchases, because somebody purchases, they leave a review. These things make us more relevant, which lowers our CPCs, which allow us to leave more reviews, which get more sales, which allow us to, all these kind of things, they cycle back and forth and around and around. So you really need to be looking at an account holistically. One of the things that I think Beeble does very well, that we had a huge success with over Q4 and Q1, there's always that Q4 craziness of like push, 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 push. We want the sales. There's more eyes on the platform. How do we get them to our product? And I think that's great. And I'm in no way discounting that we should be improving sales over Q4 compared to the rest of the year. I just think sometimes we can get a little carried away, and we start sacrificing some of those efficiency metrics like ACOS, like tacos, like CPC, like conversion rate, like click-through rate. And these are all things that Amazon is taking into account with their algorithm to tell us how relevant our product is going to be. So when we start discounting those over Q4, we always see that Q1 drop, right? You go from December to January, it's almost like a gut punch. We in 2021 did a really good job with a lot of our clients of making sure we weren't sacrificing those efficiency metrics. And for a number of our clients, Q1 this year was bigger than any quarter we've had. It was bigger not just than Q4 2021, it was bigger than Q4 2020, which was also massive. So we really kind of feel like we've cracked the code there a little bit in making sure that we're not sacrificing any of these metrics for the others. We're looking at it holistically. We're seeing where the problems lie. We're creating actionable plans. Your ACOS is too high. Start lowering bids and seeing if you can launch new campaigns to make up that sales gap as you lower bids. Your tacos is too high. You're going to do a very similar thing, understanding always that your efficiency and your sales are going to be on a little bit of a teeter-totter. But we're also going to be looking at conversion rate and click-through rate while that's going on. It's very holistic, and that's what we really try and focus on at Be Bold.
Yeah, very interesting. Your about the Q1 performance. That is certainly not something that we hear of a lot, right? So very interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about the practical aspects of this, right? Because we've talked about metrics and how they link to actions. That makes sense. But how do you go about implementing them? And specifically, let's say you diagnose a particular ASIN, there's room to move on the click-through rate, there's room to move on the conversion, there's room to move on, the advertising performance, and you may come up with a list of 10 different things, all very valid, genuine opportunities that you've identified based on those metrics. How do you go about changing that? I'm not talking about, how does the Amazon backend work and how do you type things in? I'm talking about, like, do you do everything at once? Do you do it piecemeal? Do you A/B test? Because, sometimes you change 10 things at once and then kind of the results stay the same. You don't really know. Did nothing work? Did some work, but others didn't? Cancel each other out? What's your approach there, Max?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, and almost answering your own question. within the question, right? You want to isolate variables wherever possible. Sometimes you're going to have a client with I'll say speedy needs, right? We need to do this now. We need to get this done now. So sometimes it's unavoidable where you're making changes to your advertising and you're making changes to content. When that's the case, it's really, really important. I keep hammering home on this. It's really important to understand what everything you're doing is changing and what it's going to impact. And try and isolate those variables more specifically. So if you are changing your targeting, let's say you haven't been attracting enough new consumers, you've been spending too much on the branded space, protecting your branded keywords. So you're shifting your targeting a little bit, and at the same time, you're changing your main images in your title. If your click-through rate and conversion rate are going up, that was probably your main images in your title. Moving to a more competitive space is not going to improve your click-through rate. It's not going to improve your conversion rate. So it's just really important to understand what all of these metrics really indicate and figure out what direction things typically go so that you can understand while you're doing multiple things at once. But again, best case scenario, isolate your changes, see the performance, replicate success, and write a blog post about your failures, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes learnings are just as important as the wins, right? And particularly making sure those learnings are shared within your organization and avoid others making the same mistake or maximizing the learnings from it. So
we've got a celebration channel at Be Bold, and sometimes we'll post our own failures in there. A lot of times it's somebody did great, look at how good this is going, but if you mess up bad enough, you throw it in the celebration channel and you go, look at this mistake I made, guys, let's not do this again. Yay, we learned.
It's not. Yeah, we have this saying as part of our culture DNA. It's absolutely okay to make mistakes, but what's unforgivable is if you don't take the time to share that mistake with others, so that others can learn from it. Right? Not always an easy thing to do. Sounds pretty intimidating, but I think there's so much to be learned from examining other people's mistakes. In a kind of objective fashion. So we have 1 minute left, Max, and I didn't brief you on that, but that's kind of makes it interesting. I've been asking every single guest I've had on this podcast over the last couple of weeks, and of course, that's about Prime Day. And my two questions are: do you know the date? And obviously, that's the easy question. Well, maybe not so easy. And the second one is actually, what are you doing this week or next week as you work with your clients to help them prepare? Practical things.
I love this question. I'm going to answer the second one first. We all knew that kid in college that would ask you right before finals, "Hey man, are you ready for finals? Are you ready for finals?" And there's always the two responses. There's the "Yes, I've been cramming for the last 3 days," or there's the "Yeah, that's why I went to class all semester. I've been preparing all semester for that." At Be Bold, we're the latter. We're preparing for Prime Day. We're preparing for Q4 all year round. We're trying to improve our organic ranking, improve our paid ranking, so that when Prime Day comes around, sure, we've got couponing, sure, we've got increased ad spend, we've got all these things kind of going on, but we're prepped, we're ready. So I think that's my answer to the second question. The first question, I've heard whispers. I think that we all kind of think, last 2 weeks June, first 2 weeks July, but who knows? Amazon likes to keep a tight lip so that the other competitors can't come in and launch their own coupons on the same week.
That's a wide range, right? Hey, so completely appreciate that you guys are in a good position, that you think about Prime Day all the time. I don't think all agencies out there have that luxury, right? Probably a lot of them are watching this going, "Oh, maybe I should be doing more. I know we're thinking about it, haven't really got my act together." Any advice you'd have for them? Like, if there's anything, if you're, and it's the 17th, 18th of May, depending on your time zone, not that long to go. What advice would you have for them? If you're not completely organized by now, and of course, part of the answer is too late. But what would you do? What 2 or 3 things would you say? Look, just do this.
Find your top sellers. Immediately launch performance campaigns in your ads for those, and try and gain them as much relevance as you can over the next 6 weeks. Because if you launch a campaign 2 days before Prime Day, the people that launched them in May are going to beat you.
Fantastic. That's really, and apologies for putting you on the spot, Max, but managed to extract some great insights out of you. So really, really appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap for today. We're out of time. So, Max, first of all, I just want to really thank you for coming on the show today. I love the fact that you're sharing your expertise, the practical tips. I love your passion about metrics and how you tie everything together and just demystifying the whole topic. And how you break it down in some really bite-sized chunks. So thank you so much for your generosity. Just for viewers that are interested in exploring your services, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can email me directly at max@bebolddigital.com, or you can email my CEO, Denny, at bebolddigital.com. Either one of us would be happy to field your inquiries, and we'd love to chat.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. That's really it for this episode of Marketplace Masters. Don't forget to visit Merchant Spring to access exclusive offers only available to viewers of this show. Till the next episode. Bye-bye, everyone.